Hello everyone, thanks so much for tuning in again. So this video is a little less of a flow along with me video and more of me providing you guys tips, some movements, and some stretches to help you get deeper into your middle splits if that's in your practice. So if you're maybe an inch or two from the floor and you're working on getting your middle splits flat to the floor, this video will help you out a lot, as well as if you're working on rolling into your middle splits. And what I mean by rolling is what I'm doing right here, where I'm pressing almost through straddle all the way through. So I'll go ahead and put my bird friend away here and we can jump straight into the video. Alright guys, so when we're working middle splits, you can see how close you are to your middle splits by sitting up tall and bringing your legs as wide as they possibly can to either side. One way you can test this is pressing straight up against a wall and seeing if you can press your pelvis flat against the wall. When we roll into middle splits, if your legs come completely flat, you should be able to roll forward, press with your belly and with your chest, as opposed to rounding through your upper back. So when you begin to stretch for middle splits, we can work in our straddle here. And straddle is an awesome stretch. Begin to loosen up a little left to right. And one thing I want you guys to think about is the rotation or the tilt of your hip. So you'll see a lot of people in yoga classes are stretching straddle where they're rounded through their upper back like this. But when you actually press your chest forward, as I'm doing here, even though my hands are in the same spot, totally deeper stretch. So maybe look at yourself in the mirror from the side and see if your back is rounded here or if you're pressing forward. And you want to always be pressing forward. Lead with your chest as you lower to the floor. Really press your belly button down. Send your hips back behind you. So this movement that I'm doing here is an awesome one. Especially if you find yourself rounding, you can round and arch forward. Think of it as a cat-cow. And as you make these movements, when you stay in your straddle, your kneecaps and your toes will be facing straight up towards the ceiling. When we work more in towards middle splits, you can allow your knees to rotate so the insides of your knees will come down on the ground. So when you come all the way belly towards the floor, you can work some different angles here, which is super important for getting your middle splits, especially if you're working on rolling into them. You want to hit a bunch of different angles because as you're rolling into the middle splits, you're not just stretching one angle of those muscles of the inner thighs, your hip rotators. So stretching out left and right will be very beneficial. So if you get your chest flat down to the floor, make it very active and press through your hands. And in this video, I'm scooting my hips forward and back. So coming through straddle, working more towards middle split, press the heels out wider to either side. Another way you can do this is sit up taller and work your heels wider and then lower down. Sit up taller, work your legs wider and lower down. And continue doing that. So I'm actually sitting up and manually pressing my legs wider to either side. So once you make your way into your middle split, this rolling forwards and backwards motion is essential to loosening up a little more through the muscles of the inner thighs. You want to be changing the angles up there by rounding a little bit, pressing the hips, tilting forward and back. Another way you can get a little bit closer to the floor is to actually take your frog split here. So keep your knees at 90 degrees at first, and then you can begin to work some more angles. So hinging forward and back, and this is awesome if you aren't quite flat to the floor with your middle splits. Work in frog first before you work in your middle split, and once you get a great frog, your middle splits are very, very close. So another way to up the ante on your frog stretch here is to press through your hands. In this way, it actively presses your hips a little bit closer to the ground. And again, working the angles in your frog stretch here. So I'm pressing on over to one side and then through center to the other. Alright, so we're working back in our straddle here. Always sit up tall, find the length through your spine before you begin to stretch. Remember to breathe deeply, drop your shoulders, release the tension in your upper body. And when you begin working, rolling into your middle splits, it may feel very difficult, it likely will. And so what I'm showing here is what it will feel like if you don't quite have the flexibility. Your hips will seem like they're lifting straight up in the air. It will be a very intense stretch along your inner thighs. Since I have the flexibility there, I have to hold myself up, but the lack of flexibility per se will be holding your hips up in the air. And one way to work still rolling into your split to get those different angles of the muscles of the inner thigh is to actually sit on a block or a bolster, whatever you have, and then work your middle split here. So this is the same technique you'd use with your front splits when you set the block up under your hip, but just propping your hips up a little bit higher so that you can work the same stretch, get the same benefits without going quite as deep. And then before you know it, you'll be getting rid of the block and almost to the floor. So here I'm taking that same motion, rolling forward and back. And then when you remove the block, you may find that you're a little bit closer. If your hips are popping up in the air like they are here, do the same technique we did with frog, where when you sit up in the air, you press a little more through your hands. And eventually your hips won't pop up quite as much. You'll be able to lay flat to the ground. Another thing to try here is over splits. And over splits are the miracle cure for getting your splits flat to the floor here. Make sure you're very, very close to your splits, and laying flat on the floor doesn't feel like that much of a stretch to you before you try the over splits here. So I'm actually using the block to prop up under one leg. So I'm using gravity to help my body get flat here. Sometimes laying flat on the floor isn't quite enough. We need a little bit more. So then when you remove the block, you will be flat. So this actually stretches you a little bit more than 180 degrees. Remember to breathe here. And make sure the block is in a spot on your ankle where it feels comfortable. You could also use a couple pillows here if that feels better. I should also note that I'm not using a mat and I'm wearing long pants. Even stretching middle splits with knee pads on is awesome so that you can slide out here. You can take the same technique in your frog. Instead of under my ankle, I'm taking it under my knee. And always do both sides. You want to make sure your legs are nice and even, or when you try and roll, one side will pop up more than the other. So always stretch evenly here. Alright, so when you're ready to roll into your middle split, take your legs wide. You can press forward and back up. The second way to roll in the middle splits is from straddle. And this is a little more difficult because you're not set up from the beginning. So you lay into your straddle and press all the way through. So a couple extra stretches I'll show here once you make your way into your middle split is that rolling forward and back, the rounding and arching through the spine. And if you're up on your elbows or up on your hands, that's going to be pressing your hips down a little bit closer to your mat or the floor. It makes the stretch more active. Remember to press strong through your shoulders. If you lay all the way down here, you can do that. You can walk your hands a little bit to one side or a little to the other. Here I'm pressing through one hand and taking a bend, then pressing through the other. Any sort of shoulder stretch while you're in middle splits can help take your mind off the middle split a little more and make the stretch more interesting as well. So those are all the tips I have for you guys in this middle splits video, really working on more advanced stretching and working towards rolling into your middle splits. If you guys have any more questions about middle splits, splits in general, or flexibility in general, definitely leave it in the comments. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you enjoyed this type of more informational video, definitely let me know if you'd like to see more like this. I'll still be making flow along with me videos, and if you like a flow along with me middle splits or over splits video, leave it in the comments below. I'd be super happy to make one. Well, have a great rest of your evening, rest of your day, wherever you are in the world. Namaste.